Okay, we're going to get started, and I know we had planned on going through and talking about the Chapter 9 material today, talking about mergers and acquisitions, alliances, and those kinds of things. That's been preempted, and unfortunately, I think some of you know, I've been here for 11 years. I spent 10 years before I came here at the Rochester Institute of Technology. So I've been doing this for the last 21 plus years. Probably delivered course content to tens of thousands of students over those 21 years. And there was always one lecture that I hoped I never would have to give. And unfortunately, that hope ran out. Because I'm going to give a lecture today that basically is the toughest one I've ever had to give. And for some of you, it's the toughest one you've ever had to hear. When the midterm exam ended on Friday a week ago, I looked at the data from the midterm exam, and at first I was just looking at the running statistics for the exam, and the exam was running about a grade and a half higher than it ever had run before. I thought that was rather interesting. It kind of set up a little bit of a red flag because with 600 and some odd students and basically a course that's been taught fundamentally the same way for the last 4 or 5 years, you don't see that kind of a grade improvement by chance. Once the exam ended, I ran more complete statistics on the exam, and what I came up with, or what came out of that, was something that looks like this. Right? And I'm comparing the summer 2010 capstone course, which I taught, to the fall 2010 capstone course. In summer 2010, this is the grade distribution. It's virtually a standard normal distribution around the mean. You'll notice that there's a single peak in the distribution and that the tails of the distribution are relatively equal, with the exception of the one student down at the bottom who basically scored a 60 out of 200. It's a relatively normal distribution. That's what it ought to look like. There are about 400 students in the course in the summer. This is the grade distribution from this semester, and I think you can immediately notice the difference. This is what's called a bimodal distribution. Bimodal distributions exist when an external force has been applied to a data set that creates a systematic bias to the data set. Now, on Sunday when I ran this, I didn't know what the systematic bias was, but I knew that it was there. On Monday, I found out what it was, because a student, either through a guilty conscience or as a heads up, anonymously dropped this in the bin on my office door. This is, as some of you out there know, because some of you out there are also in possession of this, is the complete test bank for the midterm exam. During the course of Monday, the lab instructors basically took a look at the data, started receiving emails from students who were concerned and upset that classmates had been bragging to them that they had advanced copies of the exam and that they aced the exam because they had all the answers ahead of time. Guess what? The midterm exam grades are being tossed. Whatever you scored on the midterm exam no longer exists. Everybody in the capstone course is going to be required to retake a new midterm exam. And before I get into the specifics of that, I want to thank all of the lab instructors and all of the team for working virtually nonstop over the course of the last 96 hours to write a completely new exam with about 200 questions to choose from, none of which, and I repeat, none of which come from a test bank.